We are now coming up on 30 seconds to acquisition of the command module.
G'day, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching around the world. Welcome to IMAGI-NATION TV. My name is Robbie and I will be hosting the show today, which is all about teachers, what is mentoring and what is IMAGI-NATION and the role that it plays. So mentoring is the key to sharing wisdom between generations. It's, I guess, the core value to what has made AIME so strong for the past 15 years. And now through IMAGI-NATION University, people across the world have been picking up the baton to build programs at their own campuses that help to uplift through mentorship, working with their broader community, and also with, I guess, the ultimate mentors, and they're teachers and educators. Now, teachers, I say, are probably the most important cog in the cause for alleviating education inequality. They're that one key ingredient that students around the world can use. And through IMAGI-NATION University, teachers can utilize the learnings of we've had at past 15, 16, 17, 18 years, and they can bring imagination into their classrooms to unlock people's mindsets, to engage in exercises around creativity, around higher order thinking, as well as activate their community around their school to make education more inclusive, more engagement, and deeper experience for all. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to throw it over to a quick video, then introduce you all to our 4 special guests on today's show.
Let's imagine
what a free and just world looks like. Let's imagine
a university free for all,
with no paywalls to higher order thinking for anyone, anywhere.
Let's imagine
a social network for good.
A bridge for us to come together and redesign the way the world works.
Let's imagine what happens when we tell the kids at the back of the class,
We see you.
There is a generation of kids just like you.
Let's imagine school students, university students,
Teachers, executives, citizens.
coming together to work on a curriculum designed for a future that we hope to build. Now, imagine.
It's happening right here. And you're invited.
Welcome to IMAGI-NATION University, brought to you by AIME, the Imagination Factory.
Applications are open now.
There you go. So we're joined by 4 special people. So we've got Matthias, we have Keely, we have James, and we have Ailish, and they all play different roles in different parts of the globe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chuck it over to them to give you a bit of an introduction about themselves and what they've been up to.
So I'm Keely, and I'm a Wiradjuri who grew up on Inangai land, which, as James has said, he used to live in the cold and now he's in the hot, but I grew up where it was 45 degrees over summer all the time. So that's why I'm so tan, by the way. And I'm a 3rd year undergrad studying biotechnology at the University of Queensland, and have been fortunate enough to be an AIME president for the last year. So that's me.
So, hello guys, my name is Mateus. I'm 17 years old. I'm from Brazil. I'm still in high school, but I do what I love and I want to keep doing it. That's making films and helping the world.
Hey everybody, my name is James. I'm an Australian by birth and a Lauradian by choice, living here on the US-Mexican border. In today's show, I'm sharing the role of myself as a teacher educator who's been working with and unleashing teachers amongst people across the world for the last 20 plus years. And I think the key thing that we're really excited at the moment, I'm a CEO, co-founder CEO for IMAGI-NATION U, looking to unleash also the potential of the business community to unleash the potential of the youth in our city.
And my name's Ailish. I am on Ngunnawal country, so Canberra in Australia. I'm currently a president working to get a program in my university, which I'm finishing up a psychology degree and trying to reach out to some schools in Canberra to mentor some kids.
Thank you so much for the introduction, everyone. And it's an absolute pleasure to be the host on such a great panel of guests. But I think we should probably kick it off straight into some hard questions, because I guess that's the only way to start a day like today. So let's talk mentoring. Let's start off with mentoring. So whoever wants to answer, but what do you think is the key ingredient or the key value of a mentoring relationship?
Oh, I'll kick it off. I think one of the key skills or values is empathy. Having that capacity to understand and actively listen about where a person's at and what they need. Unless you understand that, the idea of guiding and providing the right information to help that person get unstuck or think through something just isn't possible.
Yeah, as James said, haha, Robbie, I beat you to it. It's what I was going to say is, which pretty much is the same thing, is understanding that you're not going to be exactly the same as them, and there might be knowledge you can't give them, but it's just they're being able to be a helping hand. Because even sometimes mentoring is actually recognizing that you're not the best person for someone, or you're not the best fit, and it's facilitating those connections and being able to help someone out that I think is key.
I'll jump in there because there's a few things, but we want to go, we can answer empathy. I think that's a really key ingredient here, like having that empathetic kind of relationship, and then also knowing, like you said, Keely, when or what to move the relationship on. Now, Matthias, you're a filmmaker, 17-year-old filmmaker from the other side of the world to me. Has there ever been a point in your life where a mentoring relationship has been vital to you and your aspirations as a filmmaker?
Yeah. In the middle of this year, I met some people that they have a project that they teach people about the Black people history in cinema. And that was just something that I never saw. And being with them, so they showed me how we play a great role in this industry, and being accepted, feeling like myself in a community, that was everything to me. So the respect that they treated me and feeling like an equal as talking to them was just everything to me.
Well, that's incredible. And equal, that is perfect. And I think there's no greater kind of sign of a good mentoring relationship where you know there's a mentee and there's a mentor, but then there's also that equilibrium between the two of you, that understanding. Now, with that, obviously, mentoring has been kind of hard in the times of COVID, no more so than, I guess, the entire world. So I've got a question for you, Ailish. What do you think some of the biggest barriers have been in the last few years when it comes to mentoring outside of that kind of COVID space?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the biggest things is it's just hard to get people to participate. That online, it's a lot different than being face to face. You get that kind of connection. When you first meet someone, you're able to, show them who you are. But it's kind of hard to do that fully on a screen. And I think, like the teachers and the schools that try and make the online learning work, and, you know, engage the students. I think it's incredible how they do that. I think, yeah, especially everything's changed now. So I think, yeah, definitely it's a bit harder, but I think once you get into it, it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of good because I feel like you can say anything you want to online. It's a little bit easier and less confronting than if someone's in person, but yeah, there's definitely pros and cons.
Cool. Now, you touched on there about teachers and the incredible job that they've been doing and have been doing, obviously, for as long as there's been educators. But James, as an educator yourself, and I guess seeing 25 years of experience of how it plays a role in young people, what do you think the new role is in terms of mentoring and educators from this point in time onwards?
I think the three wonderful people we're working with have given us a bit of an insight, that role of connecting and maybe even reconnecting. We've had this great time apart where folks have been isolated at home. One of the things down here in the Laredo, students had the choice. They could have kept studying on campus or at home. And what we've found as students have come back, it's finding that safe place and that connection with people on campus. Eilish, you know, you're leading a journey now where you're reaching back into schools. We've got 4 students here at TAMIU that during COVID were one of the 12 students that came throughout the whole pandemic. And one day after class, they come and said, could we start this teacher chapter here at the university? Because we used to have that at high school. And so in the midst of everything, they found the space, and the educator made the time and place to say, hey, yeah, you want to do it. Let's remove the barriers. So this idea of mentoring space and looking for opportunities, even in the time of COVID or crisis, actually being that source of reassurance and that source of connection, and also that source of respect that, hey, you've got a great idea here and I value it. That's the sort of stuff that an educator does. It's not sort of being the savior, and you'll hear that a lot in the AIME world. A mentor is not a savior. The mentor is the person that sometimes the validator, the connector, the catalyst to make a believer in someone that maybe just questioning himself and having that reassurance that, yeah, this is possible. Just tell me what you need me to do to create some space and remove that barrier. So being present, being that catalyst for connection, and also being that little person in the right place at the right time to say, yeah, it's okay to dream in the daytime.
Dream in the daytime. Wow, I like that. You're pre-show you were speaking some pretty good one-liners too, but I love that dream in the daytime. And there's a few things you touched on there kind of about not being a savior, which I kind of connect with too, because obviously that is part of the AIME ethos, that we're all equal. But it also kind of made me think of something Matthias said with his own kind of mentoring relationship where it made him feel like he belonged. And I think that is something that a really good teacher does. And I just want to throw out to anyone else on the call, have you had that moment with a teacher in your life where it was like, I belong now, I know this space that I'm in?
I mean, I'll jump on if that's all right. So when I was in high school, I had this one teacher who he ended up taking probably half of my classes. I ended up seeing him more than I saw my parents when I was in high school. And yeah, I just got to that point where I was like, I'm not seeing you as this authority figure that's telling me what to do. I'm seeing you as someone who's helping me achieve what I want to achieve, and supporting me through that in however way he can. And yeah, he was a great mentor. Yeah, that's all.
Well, I mean, I'm probably in the same boat. I was lucky enough to go to a pretty small school. I know some people don't think that's lucky because like we didn't have access to as many things, but it meant that all the teachers knew us quite well and knew my parents. So I couldn't always get away with a couple of things, but I enjoyed my time with all my teachers, but probably in particular, I can give a shout out to Scuddy, who was my science teacher and for something like 6 years. And I think he knew that I was going to go to university because, I wanted to do biotech, and he kind of gave me a free pass to enjoy my my biology and my chemistry where I wasn't getting pushed so hard to follow the curriculum fully and kind of let me do the experiments that I wanted. And also I think he used me to do lab tech work a little bit too much, but I mean, it helps me. I learned, and I already had a kind of a leg up when I got to university, which kind of made me feel really, really happy that he recognized that in me when like some of my peers thought that was a little bit weird for me to have that kind of energy and focus and drive. So yeah.
Oh,
Awesome.
sorry.
Well,
I was going to say, Robin, just to reflect, because this is a really cool moment. Like both Eilish and Keely here, the role of the educator, not just relying on someone, but giving them the space and help and guiding them through that transition of dependence. Hey, teach me how to do this, to I got this. And then eventually get to we can do this. And that's the same with Mateus with the mentoring there. So this journey from dependence to independence to interdependence, I think that's a real hallmark of this a productive mentoring relationship. And the story I heard in both of those was this idea, the combination of support and challenge. If it's all support and no challenge, it's just indulgence. It's really creating that dependency. But when you start to stretch, hey, try that biotech. Hey, you believe in yourself, you can do this. Hey, Mateus, you can make these films around Black history. That's cool. And it just gives you that permission and that space to grow, take you out of that comfortably numb space into a space. There's a great saying, you want a one-liner, Robbie, you know, life begins on the edge of your comfort zone. And that's where the effective mentoring, that's where we really have the fun.
That is great. I mean, I've got to write down all these one-liners. They're filling up my diary, but like on the edge of comfort, like that's a really good kind of thing for me, right? Because part of this conversation is also about imagination. And I think sometimes imagination, we can think of what, you know, 4 or 5-year-olds or young kids do. But for me, imagination is more design thinking. It is more, how can I conceptualize something now and create it? And for this, Mateus, I'm going to put you on the spot. But that kind of design thinking, imagination, your filmmaking, how important do you think that is as an ingredient to seeing from the beginning to the end of a project?
So the role that imagination played to me, like in this last year, sorry, can you repeat the question? I had some interference.
I always can repeat the question. It's like from seeing the end goal, from the beginning to the end goal, how important do you think that kind of imagination plays in kind of filling that script or that narrative?
Okay. So during the imagination process, I had a great team with me. Like I was just blessed with this team. I had Christabel from Zimbabwe, I had Jade from Australia, and Baram, who is another filmmaker. So it was just awesome to me. And I'm still kind of young in the thing that I do. So having these other people to, whenever I show them something and they say, oh, that's nice, do you want some help? I can do this for you, I can do that. So having these people that would always be there for me, these people that would always help me to be creative and to motivate me when I need it, it was just awesome. I think that's the role that imagination played.
I'm getting community from that. You built this community around you that helped foster your learning and your imagination, which I think is a key insight, right? To, I guess, learning and being in a place where it's okay to fail. Because, I mean, I'll get other panelists' opinion on that. How the importance is it to be willing to fail through your imagination to kind of find success? What's your take on that?
So, sorry to ask you to repeat again, like my connection is kind of bad.
That's okay. It's about how important do you think being willing to fail is a role? How important is that role to be willing to fail through that kind of process of your imagination and creation?
So something that I've always heard, like, is that the person that is brave is not the person that just fight and go and do reckless stuff. It's the person that is it's okay to fail. Like the person that can go there and fail and everything's okay. But failing alone, it's a lot hard. Like it's so hard to fail alone. You just get sad. But when I had this community, like with Jaden, Christopher, and Beryl, like they helping me and saying me that it was possible. They giving me sometimes even financial support. So it was just great. I felt like it's okay if I fail now. I can do this another time. They will be there for me.
Incredible. Now, James, I saw you unmute, so I'm just going to chuck it straight to you because I know there's wisdom coming.
Man, no pressure there. But no, in all seriousness, like what I'm picking up from Matthias is two things. One, creating a space for learning, like creating this safe space. There's no such thing as a mistake, there's just lessons. And the second piece that in terms of the lesson is that Matthias is open to be a learner. There's a co-evolution happening here between the mentors and the mentees. If you're open to learn, you're open to grow. And that's what I think makes that sort of relationship work. I think the other thing too, just something to consider as we, another key, I love it, that line that the imagination, flip the script here. Imagine if you reframe the conversation. There's no such thing as failure, just feed forward. We don't even use feedback, we feed forward. We give advice, it's actionable and takes you closer where you want to be. So this idea of actively listening, we can only give feed forward if we actually listen with our eyes and our ears and our heart, because it's not just the words, it's the feelings, it's how you're feeling at that time, those times when Matthias is nervous or unsure. You're that source of reassurance saying, you got this, you let us what you, we'll be there by your side. And that wasn't a mistake. Here's a great learning opportunity, and being there to ask, well, what did you learn? And now how are we going to do differently the next time? So it's about environment, but it's just as much important as who's in that environment. And Matthias, you're a rock star in terms of being open to that opportunity, because there's so many people that get opportunities to learn but never take, they get the degree, but they never get the education because they're closed in their thinking, or so they've got so many walls up, they don't let someone in that could potentially be the difference between a lesson or a lost opportunity.
See, I told you there was going to be wisdom coming, and I was 100% correct. Now we've got some questions for Keely and Eilish as young people trying to create change in your kind of community. How important do you think it is, or what can you suggest in terms of to provide some kind of agency kids to kind of be that solution or find that support group? What is some advice you could give them, or some lessons you've learned that you can share?
I think honestly, being open to asking for help, being open to accept it, and I don't know, I think like coming off what Matthias and James was saying, creating that support system, so you can fall back on them to be able to, fail, or like to be able to learn the lessons. But I think, to find, I don't know, I think I found it difficult in high school to connect with my peers, and so I did connect a lot with my teachers, which was easier to then have them as mentors. But I mean, just being able to take any opportunity that you see, I think is what advice I can give anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I can add on that a little bit. I'm going to try to say something that I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to articulate it properly, but I think the biggest thing to be able to help kids realize is that because we focus so much on your strengths and improving kind of where you feel comfortable, and that's all good in itself because some people have innate abilities that they do push really far. But I think something that I've found is actually understanding where your limitations are, where you don't excel, and being able to extend a hand so you're not pushing yourself too far, and giving people the space and like the support network for that. So like that's why team stuff is always really good, because you kind of go, no, you don't need to push yourself in that if you're not enjoying it. I can be there for that. You go and do your education and just do what you want to do and improve where you want to, instead of just focusing on that negative and stretching yourself too thin. So like for me, I do a lot of, and this is throwing it back to my cattle working days, is I do a lot where I'm out on a property and I'm with 3 or 4 people and we are doing things that are physically like not for me. I'm tall, but I'm really not strong at all. I don't know if you could tell. And I do try to push myself a lot because I'm in that and I'm like, I need to be capable. And my dad just comes up to me and goes like, don't even try. I'm here to support you. Do what you're good at that I'm not. So, you know, there's always going to be that balance where you need to find kind of what you're good at, what you enjoy, and being able to find that is always really important, I think.
What role do you think an educator plays in helping a student or a mentee kind of find that position for themselves? Like, how do you think an educator could go about that with your experience, Keely?
For me, I think it was brutal honesty with my teachers, being like, you need to have the right expectations. That worked for me because I definitely like kind of transparency when it comes to what I'm doing and what I'm achieving. I think it's just pushing kids in the right direction without them realizing, or with them realizing, is kind of how you get that. And giving them the opportunities to excel in the parts that they enjoy. That was always the thing for me. I was really bored during school all the time. So I kind of just stagnated and I wasn't achieving anything. I didn't actually want to be there because we weren't learning anything that interested me. So my growth just declined completely. And a couple of teachers kind of realized this and just gave me work in places that they knew I was going to enjoy and where I had my strengths. Which is what I said about the lab tech work. Like that was completely off. Like that wasn't actually, I didn't get any grades for it, but I really enjoyed it because it was what I was going to be doing when I went to uni. And they kind of pushed me into that direction. So I definitely am thankful for them.
Okay, well, James, any wisdom? Do you want to ask you that question offline?
Yeah, no. Oh, sorry, I missed that piece there. I was so engaged in the conversation here, I missed the chat stuff. So help an old fellow. I can't multitask, so I know my limitations. Hey, the 3 S's I came across there, like first of all, spark. Like when you think about an educator, they're looking for that spark. So if I was working with Keely in a space, you know, I'd be looking for once you start to disengage or numb out, I'm looking for that spark. What's going to get you to where you want to be? And the second thing in terms of kinship, and you talk to family and you talk to your dad and say, hey, tell me about what Keely's really good at. And he's going to say, well, forget moving cattle. I'm the same. Like we used to move cattle up and down the road. My sister would always sit out. My brother and I thought it was bad, but my dad was smart enough to know that my sister had strengths that didn't involve moving cattle. And this is a key point. Like we often talk about building up our weaknesses. There's a really cool guy. They start to talk about the strengths finder, and his whole idea is, well, even on your best day, your strongest, if you try and strengthen your weakness, it's just a strong weakness. So really start to find out what your strengths are, know who you are. So not only connecting with the wisdom of your elders, but connecting with the wisdom of yourself. Have that honest conversation with, what am I really good at? And I sat down one day and did this thing called the strength finders. And lucky for me, there was 2 things that came out. My number 1 strength was teaching. I thought, hey, that's pretty cool. I'm a teacher. And the second one was a connector. And so my whole life now has just been focusing around to be that standout, optimize the 1 or 2 strengths that you've got and take it to a new level. I can see emerging strengths with Matthias in filmmaking. So make that your number 1 strength and find out what your backup strength is to make it even better. And that's invitation to Keely and Elish as well. And I think the last thing is, with all of us, especially with youth at the moment, you got so much stuff going on. Find some space and look for these patterns between where the strengths are meeting the opportunities and how do I leverage it when I haven't got, if it's the spark that I've fired doesn't catch fire with other people, that's when I lead into a mentor to say, what am I missing here? And that clarity of distance and that clarity that only comes through intergenerational wisdom or perspective of other, that's when all the magic happens.
I think we need to bottle up everything you've said today in a little handbook and spread it across the networks wide.
I think that's why I've got a video. It's called video. We've got it. We're on top of that. Robbie?
Perfect. Now, to finish the show off, I want to know what each of you kind of planned for your, I guess, university experience as part of the AIME University this year? What's your plans for 2022 within the university or outside of the university? What's going on for each of you? And we'll start with Ailish.
Beautiful. So look, I took on a president role for my internship, but I'm probably going to step down and just be a mentor next year, which is definitely not a bad thing because that's still something, and just be available whenever I can, of course. But I'm hoping that I'll be able to, we're in the process of setting up a student club at our uni. So I kind of want to see that out. I want to get it established. I want to put my name on it. And yeah, I think that'll go into next year. And then I'll just go around to some schools, just help out wherever I can.
Okay, I can go now. For the next year, I'm applying to universities in US right now, so it's kind of blurry. I don't know where I'm going to be next year, but I pretend to keep at AIME, but now I was as a group leader this year, so I wanted to be a student, to know much more people as I knew this year, and to continue doing my job. I teach English to some people here in Brazil, so I want to continue doing this. I met a girl that she has a school. I want to keep helping people and doing movies.
Well, I think, I don't know the exact date, but I'm supposed to be graduating from the AIME presidency in a couple of weeks, I think. Yes, thank you. I get a hoodie, which is supposedly pretty cool, which I'll put on for you, James, so that you don't feel out of place. But I mean, this was UQ's kind of first year having it all fully up. I know COVID always had issues, but it was really good to get it established. I mean, I'm definitely trying to stay in. I'll probably be doing handovers somewhere mid-year next year because I start honours. And as much as I'd love to be an AIME president during honours, I feel like I would be. You obviously know how stressed honours students get. But I definitely am in the place to keep it going and bring people up from my community and from all my connections to help push UQ's AIME at least in the right direction. So I look forward to that.
And that leaves me, I think. So we've got a big year planned over here. I'm actually stepping down as president of the International Council on Education for Teaching to become a co-founding president of IMAGI-NATION U, the CEO stream. And what we're really looking here, we live in a 98% Hispanic community. So when we talk about, we're looking to the margins, but it's not looking towards getting more Hispanic learners. Actually, I'm the minority here as the Caucasian Australian. And so we're looking to the corners of Laredo where teachers don't typically come from, because we see teaching as a pathway to mobility. And being that first teacher in your family can have intergenerational impact. In Laredo, the typical household income at the margin could be something as low as $11,000 a year. A starting teaching salary is $50K a year. So if you can mentor the folks, and this is where the CEOs come in, there's three big tripwires we've identified. Financial, so scholarships, sponsorships. Birthright, if you weren't born into a family that goes to university, working all that stuff out is pretty tough. And the third one is readiness. If you don't get the grades, the GPAs, etc., then some of the doors, actually, if you're not ready by middle school, you don't get into the accelerated program, which could save you $30K. So we're looking to mitigate those tripwires, use mentors to mitigate those tripwires. And Mateus, if you haven't thought about a university, 98% Hispanic, your Portuguese will be a walk in the park. And we'd love to have you making movies here. So think about TAMIU as well. Don't forget about us. I've got you on my radar now. So that's where I'm at, and looking forward to making some magic with the wonderful people on this show today.
Thank you so much for each of you sharing your wisdom today. That's all we have time for, but I think it's really important that as we end the show, we reflect on some of the, I guess, the really key learnings, because this has been in my opinion, incredible. Like, identifying what makes a great mentoring relationship. We're talking about empathy. We're talking about building bridges, feeling comfortable in your space, to, you know, your strengths-based learning, where you find what your strengths are and that's what you focus on, to finding the spark in a child, to kind of that key role imagination plays. And every single one of you have provided such incredible insight and such incredibly diverse thinking on a topic that is purely universal. And I can't thank you enough. So thank you so much for jumping on today. And I hope you all roll into a fantastic Thursday for some, Friday for others. And thank you so much. And we'll see you next week on AIME's IMAGI-NATION TV.